Hey everyone, welcome to May's Flash Fiction. The past two were a little more animal focused. Now this time, we're going to go for the stars. I've recently read some H.P. Lovecraft and have been inspired to write a space horror with like an impending doom, the typical H.P. Lovecraft work that he's known for. And this short story is called Abe. The Alberta Plains are supposed to be a simple place to grow up. My folks have always said, Alberta's a wonderful place when I was a child. Things sure have changed. I understand why my folks would say this since they were raised before the Galactic Believers formed. At first, no one thought the Galactic Believers were a problem. We would hear about them on the radio, the TV, and online. It seemed like a goofy hoax or some sort of new age spiritual awakening. To me, religious beliefs are naive. Not everyone agrees with that, though. What most people did agree upon was that the Galactic Believers were off their rocker. Everyone loved to make fun of the Galactic Believers. As time went by, the jokes started to dwindle, as the seriousness of the situation escalated. I can recall the day when they first started to show up. It had to be about 5 years ago. Summertime was coming to an end, which meant it was going to get darker much sooner. I was still going to school and working on the farm with my dad and Uncle Fred. Mum was making dinner. I had just finished up for the day and had finished showering. Then there was the knock at the door. We never get knocks at the door. My dad and uncle were still out, working on the tractor. Mum was too busy prepping dinner. So I did the responsible thing and went to see who was at the door. This was when I met the Galactic Believers. It had to be just past 6 when I went to answer the newcomers. After pulling the front door open, I saw 3 men. Each one was well dressed, all in black, and had a cold, expressionless face. At the time, I didn't know who they were. I had heard about the Galactic Believers on the news, but I had never seen them face to face. My gut told me that they were not normal men. Straight-laced, well-dressed, people did not come out to the farms very often, unless they had bad news to share. I asked them what they wanted, and they simply clutched their leather-bound books tighter. The one in the middle spoke, saying, "We are visiting each resident outside of the city. Do you have a moment to discuss your future in the planetary absorption to come?" After he asked the question, I knew they were Galactic Believers. The 3 of them wanted to tell me about the extraterrestrial worshipping. The whole concept was a crackpot idea, and I told the men that we didn't want anything to do with what they had to offer. Without giving them a chance to talk, I began to close the door. The man in the middle made one more remark, saying, "Your terms with the Galactic Array must be decided soon." My mom did not even bother to ask who was at the door. Cooking distracted her. Uncle Fred and Dad came home that evening, and everything proceeded as normal. Several weeks went by before the Galactic Believers arrived again. This time, they visited early in the morning. So early that it was still dark. The sun was just beginning to rise. My dad answered the door, and I could hear them asking about his future in the planetary absorption. My dad could not help but laugh. He's a black and white kind of guy. The New Age beliefs don't mean anything to him. If it wasn't something he could see or touch, it wasn't real. The Galactic Believers continued to talk, explaining to him that Earth had been selected by Abe, and we would be joining the Galactic Array. My dad snickered again and closed the door on them. Life continued as normal. For the first couple of years, the Galactic Believers did not come back. It wasn't until the 3rd year on the day from the first visit that they started to show up again. The Galactic Believers' visit became more and more frequent. With each knock at the door, they would share more information about the Galactica Array and Earth part in it. They explained about the all-being entity known as Abe, who ruled over this planetary merging. My dad began to think of these visits as harassment. He would tell them to leave and threaten to shoot them. Of course, that had no ground in Canada. We even called the RCMP, and they said they were getting reports similar to ours all around the province. On television, The news stated these visits weren't just provincial or across the country. The Galactic Believers were contacting people around the globe. No one knew their origins or where they came from. We only knew that their numbers continued to grow. Even people I knew were becoming members. Coincidentally enough, as the Galactic Believers had more visits, NASA made a public announcement of an astronomical object coming towards our galaxy. The size of this object was equal, if not more massive than the Milky Way. It appeared to come out of nowhere, and much closer than the Andromeda Galaxy, which is presumed to collide with the Milky Way well beyond our lifetime. NASA's sudden announcement was met with criticism. People thought they were incompetent for lack of foresight. NASA responded that they were working diligently on understanding the nature and speed of this unknown object. The announcement only stirred up more confusion and fear to everyone. People began to wonder if it was related to the Galactic Believers. Plenty of people expressed their opinion on the news, online, and on the streets. Doomsday was the collective agreement. The arrival of this new object heading straight for the Milky Way was enough to convince plenty of people to become Galactic Believers. To these converted, the space object was proof that the Galactic Believers were speaking only the truth and wanted to help humanity. I wasn't so convinced. There have been plenty of cases throughout human history where people were sure Doomsday was here. It never is. People enjoy fantasizing about the end of the world. My opinion didn't matter though. People still became Galactic Believers. Anyone who becomes a Galactic Believer is sworn to an oath of secrecy to the bigger picture. One of my high school buddies, Ron, even tried to get me to join the organization, or religion, or whatever you want to call it. He told me that the all-being entity, Abe, was accepting of everyone. His wisdom and powers are beyond human comprehension. Ron said Abe is willing to talk to you through a mental link into your consciousness. Abe shares visions, feelings, and sensations that cannot be expressed through simple words or through our limited forms. Perhaps bliss is the best way to describe what Abe shares with you. The reason I am saying this is because Abe visited me. At first, I thought it was merely a dream, stress from having to take care of my folks in their older age, and the constant harassment from the Galactic Believers. The dreams continued to happen over and over. These visions projected me further beyond Earth, flying well beyond our solar system. I was taken out of the Milky Way galaxy into a foreign astral realm where I could see unexplainable swirls of color. Some of them took shape of humanoid form and watched as I soared through this plane. All of these colors and abstract beings were unified under a large triangular object. The first time I was brought to this foreign space, I was shot back to the real world far too soon to see any more. As the dreams continued to happen, I saw more and more of this astral realm. I learned that the triangle was not a spaceship, nor a pyramid, but a two-dimensional shape that always stared directly at me. It didn't matter what angle I approached it from. It had no depth. It was the same bright white triangle. These dreams gave me a sense of warmth, wonder, and fear. I was not in control of the motion. I was simply a passenger experiencing unity with these swirls of color under the watchful white triangle. Upon the fifth dream, Abe revealed himself to me. His voice was strident, welcoming, and soothing. In the dream, the voice projected from this triangle. It made me realize that the triangle was Abe. Abe said to me, "Your planet has many wonders. Your people are a young spark in this old galaxy. We welcome you to the Galactica Array, the next evolutionary step in your species." I was confused and unsure what to say. This was everything Ron had told me about in his dreams. And regarding his, pardon the cat? Cat is causing troubles. This was everything Ron had told me about in his dreams. And regarding his initiation process to the Galactic Believers. How could this be? Was there truth to what the Galactic Believers have to say? Was I being drugged? Or was this simply being stressed out? I didn't have an answer. I simply stared into the white triangle. Abe continued, I am sure you are confused. Do not be. Your consciousness is bound to this three-dimensional plane, and you are not capable of understanding what non-carbon-based life is capable of. There is more to existence than the simple dimensions of your life cell constricts you to. I can bring you to greater heights. Embrace me. Accept me. For I am the beginning and the end of this dimension. I wanted to ask Abe what did he want. Before I could, I woke up to a loud bang. I sprang from my bed and sweat, trying to figure out where the noise came from. It was close. Hurrying out of my bedroom, I saw Uncle Fred and my mother looking through the window where a ring of men with torches stood outside of our home. My dad was at the doorway, holding a shotgun, staring at the men. He shouted at them, telling them to leave and that we wanted nothing to do with their bullshit beliefs. The men didn't respond. The men only stared at our home, torches burning. I asked Mom if she called the RCMP, and she said the lines were not working. I hurried over to the television to turn it on. Only static grain showed up on the screen. Next was the radio. It worked. Most of it was static noise, but a countrywide warning was played on repeat. The sound cut out, making it difficult to understand what they were saying. The gist of it was that this was a state of emergency. One of the Galactic Believers stepped forward in a calm, relaxed manner. His palms open. In a wide smile, he said, "The all-being entity is near." He pointed to the sky, and the other Galactic Believers looked upward. My father, myself, my uncle, and mother all looked up to the stars to see a large black triangle, darker than the night itself, was directly above us. The Galactic Believer said, "It is not too late for you to agree to the terms of Abe. He is all-loving, he is all-knowing. Earth will be absorbed into the Galactica Array. We want to take you with us." My father fired his shotgun in the air and shouted, "Leave now or I'll fire at you." The Galactic Believer continued, "Those that do not willfully accept Abe into their soul will never join the Galactica Array. There is no room for disbelievers of Abe and his power. We carbon-based creatures cannot understand the greatness that he has to offer. He is old, wise, and his consciousness spans well beyond the fabric of reality." Another blaring sound erupted from my father's shotgun. Smoke went into the air as the Galactic Believer was launched from the ground for a split moment before colliding into the dirt. My mother screamed. My uncle swore and hurried over to my father, who pointed his shotgun directly at the Galactic Believer, smoke rising from the gun's chamber. My uncle stared to yell at my dad, asking him what the hell did he do. My mother began to cry, and I comforted her as the black triangle of the sky grew larger. Another shot erupted. My uncle shouted, trying to snag the gun from my dad as he attempted to reload it. The bullet missed the Galactic Believers. They did not move or flinch. They extended their hands outward, torches in hand. "What the?" my dad said. My mother looked to the front walkway to see that my dad was looking at. "My God," Uncle Fred said. The Galactic Believer my father shot rose up from the ground. It was as if an invisible force lifted him up. He did not use his limbs. His face was motionless. Eyes had rolled back, leaving only the sclera visible in each eye socket. Once the Galactic Believer was fully vertical, his mouth opened, and a voice projected from within saying, "The galactic absorption has come." Instantly, I recognized the voice of Abe, the all-being entity. He had arrived. The Galactic Believers warned us. Earth's absorption into the greater had finally come. Those that are willing to embrace humanity's next phase will be accepted and loved within the Galactica Array. Those that refuse are simply part of the natural process of evolution. This is how life progressed on Earth. Removal of the unfit is the next progression. All life that embraces the Galactica Array and myself, the all-being entity, will see the space-time limitations found within this realm. Those that accept me will be brought to new heights of dimensional exploration. Those that do not will cease to be. My uncle wrestled with my father as he attempted to shoot the Galactic Believer, projecting Abe's voice. Before either one could get the upper hand on the other, a bright white shot from the black triangle in the sky. The light was so bright it blinded everyone in view for several seconds. Once the light vanished, my mother, who I still held, disintegrated in my arms. Following her, the walls, furniture, and the entire house began to dissolve as if it were being eaten by acid. My uncle and father were too busy wrestling with a gun to even realize that they were absorbed by this dissolving entity. They also ceased to exist. The grass, the dirt, and everything around Earth began to dissolve. The Galactic Believers remained. I remained. Not for much longer, though, for the Galactic Believers and myself began to disintegrate. Our particles levitated upward along with millions of other particles, or atoms, from around the world. We were being absorbed into the triangle in the sky. I did not feel pain or agony. There was a sense of coming home. Abe had spoken to me through dream form. The all-being entity was the way, and I wish my relatives had seen the same truth I had. Whether they know it or not, they have been absorbed into the Galactica Array, where their atoms live on, as do I, except with my consciousness intact. For I now join the other Galactic Believers, who are under Abe's eternal watchful eye. And that is May's Flash Fiction, some cosmic horror for you. If you enjoyed the story, please share it with your friends across social media, and we'll catch you for next month's Flash Fiction, which is June. That is also the launch of The White Hand, a Rutherford Manor novel, the brand new book that is coming out this year. I'm beyond excited to share it with you all. It'll be debuting at a VIP party in Sherwood Park, and also at Audrey's bookstore in Edmonton. Following that, I'll be at the Calgary HorrorCon, where it'll also be available. I'll catch you then. Ciao.